This hour also is sponsored in part by David Moritz, who sponsored the last hour. His message this hour: we have become a Nazi monster in the eyes of the world, a nation of bullies and bastards who would rather kill than live peacefully. We are not just whores for power and oil, but killer whores with hate and fear in our hearts. We are human scum, and this is how history will remember us. That's from Hunter Thompson, not David Moritz. David adds, rest in peace, big guy. You knew the game better than the players ever did. Hunter Thompson quote, which I think is appropriate for this program, don't you? We'll come to your calls here in just a second. Two states, Mississippi and Pennsylvania, had their Republican-instigated so-called voter ID laws, the laws to try to deny people access to vote, which is just astonishing. Both Pennsylvania and Mississippi were told by judges today not going to work. Mississippi's law will not be in effect for the November general election because federal officials are going to have to review whether the measure is discriminatory. Gee, I wonder what they're going to find. As part of the implementation to figure out whether Mississippi law is discriminatory, the state provided insufficient evidence for the U.S. Department of Justice to determine whether the new law would violate the Voting Rights Act. Now, there are certain states in the South who are still under the order of the Voting Rights Act because of decades of discrimination against black voters. There's an effort in the U.S. House and the Senate, I believe, by Republicans to get that law kicked out because they say the law's not needed anymore. We're kind of colored folk down here in the South. You don't have to worry about nothing. We're going to let them vote. They just have to be able to cite the Constitution of the United States backward in Latin in order to get a ballot. But what the hell? Anybody can do that, right? The Justice Department requested several additional documents from the state. I love this, including any data supporting the state's position that the law won't hinder minority voting, or that if it does, how proposed changes in the law or administrative rules and regulations would remedy that. Federal officials also want Mississippi to provide a list of all registered voters by name, race, birth date, address, social security number, and driver's license. You go, Justice Department! I don't give a damn what Eric Holder does. That's pretty cool. According to the State Attorney General's office, some of that information is readily available, but some will take more time to obtain. Mississippi Attorney General Jim Hood said in a statement, quote, all the Department of Justice is saying in this response is that they need more details of the state's plan in order to make a determination. Yeah, you goddamn right there, Attorney General. That's exactly what it is. You got it right there, dude. But your little scam is not going to work this election. It just ain't going to work. And there's not another big election for another 4 years, and hopefully it can be avoided next time. Up in Pennsylvania, a judge today postponed. Now, the news in Pennsylvania not quite as good, but he postponed. Robert Simpson Jr., a Commonwealth Court judge, postponed the enforcement of that state's voter ID requirements until after the November presidential election. That judge ordered that voters without government-issued photo ID be allowed to cast regular ballots. An attorney for the ACLU of Pennsylvania said this is a huge win because last week the judge was suggesting that he was going to have every voter without ID vote provisionally. Now, you know what happens when you vote provisionally. In Pennsylvania, you have 6 days to return with your photo ID. If you don't come back, they throw your ballot out. How about that? Isn't that nice? Huh? You didn't show us photo ID. Well, goddamn, we're not going to count your vote. Now, this is kind of weird because at the same time that this judge ruled that you don't need these for this election coming up in November, the presidential election, at the same time the judge also ruled to allow the state to continue its education and advertising campaign, which currently tells voters that IDs are required. And this judge is effed up, right? Oh, you can vote without it, I'm going to rule. On the other hand, the state can continue to lie to you. What do you want to bet this judge is a Republican? What do you want to bet? The spokesperson for the ACLU said, if the state doesn't change that message, quote, we may be back in court, end quote. He went on to say, this ACLU guy said, you can't be telling people you need ID if you're not actually requiring ID. The advertising has to be modified to reflect reality. Confusion is not a good thing on Election Day. Confusion is going to mean some voters stay home. Confusion is going to mean that some poll workers get it wrong, end quote. Now, a spokesman for the Pennsylvania Secretary of State, somebody named Matthew Keeler, you bet he's a Republican, said Pennsylvania is, quote, we're pleased because the law itself hasn't changed. What's going on is there's a soft rollout for the general election, just like the primary. Voters will still be asked for ID, he said. If they don't have ID, they'll be given information on how to get it. As for the advertising campaign that is misleading, is a lie, this freak from this Matthew Keeler freak from the Pennsylvania Secretary of State's office said, we're looking into what needs to be updated. To completely take that away would just muddle the area, as it were. We'll work on fixing things if we think they need to be fixed. And, of course, the PA legislature is one of several that, after the Republicans took control in 2010, remember hundreds of Republicans, just like rats, like vermin, like cockroaches invading these state houses all across the country, not just here in the South, but up north. It's just more blatant down here. But they all passed legislation to make it harder to vote rather than easier. This is not a goddamn democracy. You know, this guy's sponsoring a couple hours of the program tonight. David Moritz has it right, doesn't he? Huh? We're a nation of bullies and bastards who would rather kill than live peacefully. Even though that's a Hunter Thompson quote. Sons of bitches. These Republicans, and here's the thing. To people who vote Republican, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. Deny people the right to vote because they don't, you know, if they're veterans, if they're old people, if they're students, if they're minorities, screw them, right? So don't let anybody tell you, please, that Republicans are patriots. They're goddamn treasonous bastards. They are trying to destroy the United States. They're trying to take away the essential franchise for self-governance, and that is the right to vote. They're trying to take it away as fast and as much as they can. Because they know in the marketplace of ideas, really, if the truth were put out there, Republicans would have an ice cube's chance in hell of getting elected to anything. Because they are lying scum, every single one of them. They are liars. They are deceivers. And you know what? I'll tell you something else. Since this is church night, you know what's going to happen? Jesus, when he comes back, he's going to find all the Republicans and rip their heads off and throw their heads into hell so that the devils can use them as soccer balls. That's the truth. I wouldn't lie to you, amen. I'll tell you what, we're running a special. If you send in $1.50 tonight before midnight, we'll send you this wonderful prayer cloth that I have prayed over. I have sweat on it. I have coughed into it for $1.50. Now, if you're hip, you know what that means. That means $150. Just send here to Reverend Mike, P.O. Box Hell in Ass Backwards, Georgia. And we'll see if you get it. What? I don't know what happened there. I'm obviously channeling some demon. So, Pennsylvania and Mississippi, nice try. Maybe you can pull it off after the election. But you rancid sons of bitches, you didn't make it. And the couple other states, too. I think these rulings are going to come down before the election. Yeah.